Welcome to Victory Garden in the Wood River Valley. Seeding. So since we're encouraging people to make their own seed starts, here's how you start your plants. A lot of them we start indoors actually. I start most of my plants indoors, and this way I don't have a problem with the birds and the critters eating my seedlings. Plus, they kind of grow faster indoors than outdoors. And some, like the garden peas, there's no point starting them indoors. They sprout pretty fast, and they have a long taproot, and they don't transplant as well. Although I have transplanted them and still got a crop. But typically, garden peas you put directly in the ground. But all of the others here, I typically start them indoors, but you don't. Like you do spinach directly in the soil.
Yeah, well, from this list you can see that pretty much everything until you get to the garden peas, it's possible to do indoors or outside. But like my mom said, especially with our climate too, the majority of these do better starting them inside. And you don't have to have some fancy greenhouse, just a nice sunny window will do. Because of course what gets the seed to sprout is the warmth and not necessarily the light. As soon as it's sprouted, then you do need to find a sunny window. But for spinach,
except for lettuce needs the light to sprout. So you sow it on top of your soil.
Yes.
And it does need the light.
Yes,
that's it does need to see the light.
Differentiator.
The others do not.
But the only things in here that I prefer to just put directly into the ground outside are spinach and arugula. And that's simply because spinach can be pretty tricky to transplant if you it doesn't like to be transplanted when it's too far along. And then arugula, of course, is just so tiny. It's nice to just seed that outside, but in clumps, in clutches. But kale and chard are good to start inside.
So to start all of these, basically you follow the seed packet instructions in terms of depth, how deep to plant your seeds, and
I like the rule of thumb, right? I'm sure you have your own rule of thumb as well, Manon, and I'd love to hear it. The one that I go by in general is to plant a seed only as deep as 3 times its size, which is not much. You know, you're thinking about a little kale or chard or cabbage seed. It's 3 times the size of one of those things. You understand it's not even half of the first
like
knuckle.
Like 1/8 of an inch.
Yeah.
And you need a good seed starting mix. To seed indoors, it's good to use a fine medium. And some people will say don't use soil, use a soilless mix, because then there are less chances of your soil going moldy or your plant going moldy when you start it. So to start your seed, you need to keep your soil moist, but not
too
wet,
moist.
not soggy. So sometimes it's a fine line, and otherwise we could grow some molds and not get any seedlings.
Yeah. Although thankfully here I find that it's just it's a dry climate, so it does seem like if you we're a little less prone to some of those things. You still definitely need to watch every day and make sure you're not swamping it as well as not letting it go completely dry. But I think we benefit from the arid quality of our air.
Good. Oh, one more thing, a heat pad is really helpful. It's not a necessity, but if you have a plant heat pad that you put under your tray of seeds, it provides maybe 70-75 degrees, and it really helps for your seeds to sprout faster. And the faster your seeds sprout, the better, the healthier they will be. Less chances of them getting moldy. But once they appear, then you remove the heat pad. As soon as they the seedlings appear, remove the heat pad, and then they actually, because they're cold seeds and vegetables, they actually prefer the cooler temperatures to grow. Pest control. It's a good idea to really inspect our plants outside every day or as often as we can and remove little critters by hand.
Yeah, definitely preferable than using any kind of chemical or even having to bother with mixing up, a natural type of soap or something like that. It's so much easier if you just do a quick look, and in doing so, I recommend, I'm sure Manon would do the same thing, of turning a leaf over and looking on the underside, because most often a lot of these critters will hang out on the underside of the leaf. So just...
Especially aphids.
Yes. Just walk by and take a look if you can every day.
And you can rub them off with
yes,
your fingers.
Exactly. It's a fun thing for kids to go hunting for these things. Now, I haven't had really any experience with mosaic virus, but flea beetle, aphids, and leaf miner, those occur regularly here in Haley and in the Wood River Valley. Leaf miner is pretty particular to spinach, although I have seen it in chard. And then the bug actually gets inside the leaf, and it's like a little almost worm type thing that creates a pocket in between the leaf cell walls. So it's you just want to remove those leaves and throw them away. I don't know that you really want to put any diseased things or any of the critters themselves. You don't really want to put in your compost pile.
Not before drowning them beforehand anyway.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
I tend not to put them in my compost pile if I can.
We definitely have a lot of cabbage moths around here as well, and those are the completely white-looking butterflies. Those are prevalent, and they can be a real problem. So sometimes it's helpful to put some netting up, or frankly just
Agribond fabric, like a very light
a
fabric
very light.
Covering the whole row of vegetables will prevent the butterflies from laying their eggs on.
Right, which
on
is
your
what
greens.
you want to. Right, exactly. And that's what you want to avoid, so that the eggs don't grow into the worms that then get into the cabbage.
Right, and the garden peas, powdery mildew, I have seen that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The bugs don't affect them so much, but the mildew does if they're overwatered.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I would say for all of these vegetables, avoid watering the leaves.
Yeah, watering the base.
Water the soil, water the base, but avoid sprinkling water on your leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we will jump to seed saving. I'm definitely a seed saver. I'm part of the Wood River Seed Library. And lettuce and peas are very easy. Lettuce just wants to go to seed anyway when it gets warm outside. And it produces its seeds in the same season as you plant the lettuce. So it's easy to save your seeds. And peas, you just let some of the peas mature and dry up on the plant itself, and then you save it until next year. So they're very easy. Spinach and broccoli, there's a little more to it. Broccoli and cabbage, their seeds are produced in the second year. But you have to wait 2 years, and then you have to be aware of some cross-pollination. If you care about it, it may not be an issue. But we invite you to become a member of the Wood River Seed Library, and you will be trained into saving all your own seeds.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you for listening, and until next time.